Tuesday, November the 2nd. Dyke joins the BBC. It's not the first time. Marks and Spencer's profits down. Staff lose their shirts. Charles calls for help during speech.
Mummy?
Please welcome a prince amongst men who's never afraid to speak his mind. It's Mr. Iain Lee.
Show. Now, these are dark days, my friends. These are dangerous days. Trouble is a-coming, and soon it'll be time to take sides as the Great House of Windsor takes on the Great House of Blair. First, the Prince spoke out about GM foods, which is a bit rich considering he's from a family that's been genetically modified by centuries of inbreeding and has now produced a breed of miniature woman who lives to be 100 and has 3 hips. Then, Citizen Charles, the rabble-rousing Red Royal, snubbed the President of China, thus leaving Prince Philip to greet him with the immortal words, "Oh, look, it's Hong Kong Phooey!" Now, Charles has caused even more trouble. He's been snapped riding to hounds with the Beaufort Hunt, which is not rhyming slang for Prince Philip, I assure you. I've only just got that. Nice one. To make matters worse, he forced his eldest son to ride with him because, for the royals, chasing a poor, dumb animal into a corner is considered good practice for finding a wife. It don't matter. Prince Charles has even been out hunting with his girlfriend, Camilla Parker Bowles, who is proof that if the wind changes, your face really will stay like that. You're scary. Yeah, you really are. The prevailing mood... Let me just get this over with and get on with it. The prevailing mood seems to be that Prince Charles should keep out of it because we didn't vote for him in an election. Not me. I think he should keep out of it because he's an inbred German who can't get a job until his mum dies. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please go just as wild and welcome our very own fairy princess. It's Miss Daisy Donovan. Come on. What time is this? That bloke's mentioned. Beware of him. Calm down. She's beautiful. Get off. Daisy, what do you think of the monarchy?
Oh, I love them, especially because of the royal variety. There's the bent one, the Greek one, the drunk one, and the one with the feet, which is terrible.
Daisy, tell us what's coming up in tonight's show.
In tonight's show, I'll be talking to former Home Secretary and Euro Supremo Leon Brittan. You were only 16 when you passed your exam into Cambridge, and people must have been really scrutinising your entrance as a young man.
Well, I really did it as a sort of dummy run.
And later on, we'll be talking to this donkey.
Oh, he says E.O. He says he or his friends usually work here on the beach during the course of the summer.
Yes, Keith Chegwin will be joining us live later.
Now, here's the headlines. And tonight's top stories. Greg Dyke took over as Director General of the BBC yesterday. He's planning to streamline the corporation by cutting costs and shedding unnecessary staff. Apparently, he'll start by turning the heating off in the last of the summer wine dressing rooms.
One of his first jobs will be to take a good look at BBC News 24. The channel was said to be delighted as it will double their viewing figures.
An anonymous employee said that morale at the BBC was very low, as staff were being sacked on the Tuesday and then having to come back for an omnibus sacking on Sunday afternoons.
One of his top names, David Dimbleby, is set to earn £25,000 for Millennium night. He's going to drive a taxi.
In a worldwide survey, it turns out that fictional diplomat Stephen Shaw is better known than William Hague. Who's he, you're asking? Well, he's the leader of the Conservative Party.
A new survey of police in London shows that they find it hard to understand some of the things that racial minorities say. What, like, "Don't hit me, ow, please stop hitting me."
Tony Blair is to set up a new ministry for rural affairs, or incest, as it's more commonly known.
With the new ministry comes plans for a new watchdog. Following examples such as Oftel and Ofsted, the Ministry for Rural Affairs is said to be considering the name Of My Land. A chief concern for the rural community is still the beef crisis. Take a look at this.
Farmers are angry because they're being eaten by the French. Every year, thousands of British farmers are rounded up for live export to the continent, where they're fed on shit. Farmers aren't eaten in Britain, but in France they're considered a delicacy and end up on a French dinner table with a dollop of French mustard.
Let's out! Let's out! Barbarous!
We'd like to point out that no farmers were harmed during the filming of that report.
which is a shame. And those are today's headlines.
Daisy, do you know what you're up to on the Millennium yet?
Oh, I don't know. I've got so many plans. Maybe a meal with friends, a party, go abroad.
Well, I'm not sure what I'll be doing, but when the clock strikes midnight, I'll probably be crying at the beauty of the dawn of a new age, or possibly having a wank. But some TV presenters have already made the firm plans for the big night. They're working, and here's why.
The BBC are paying top celebrities such as Gabby Roslin and Handy Andy up to £25,000 each to entertain us on Millennium Night. I've come here to London to see what the British public thinks. Top TV celebrities are being paid £25,000 to work on Millennium Night. Do you think it's right they're getting paid that much money?
Not really, no.
I mean, there'll be a lot of people also on Millennium, a lot of other people working Millennium Night, not getting anywhere near as much as that. No. Nurses, the ambulance service, thieves stealing bits of scaffolding and long bits of metal on their shoulders, something like that. I mean, is that the sort of stuff that you'd approve of?
No.
How much did you earn last Millennium, if you don't mind me asking?
Last
Millennium.
No, it wasn't. Last Millennium was only once every 100 years, isn't it? How often is the Millennium? It's only what? Once a year. I don't. There was no hype associated with the Millennium last year.
Noel Edmonds is doing a Millennium special with Telecom Tower actually stuck up his arse. Is that something that you'd like to watch over New Year's?
Depends if there's nothing else on.
Fred West. How much will Fred West be getting paid for an appearance on New Year's Eve?
Fred West the killer.
Yeah.
Well, I personally, I'm not interested in seeing this chap on the evening.
So the public think the celebrities don't deserve their record paychecks, but could they do any better? Gabby Roslin, for 8 hours work, is going to get 25 grand. All she's going to do... Are you all right with that stolen merchandise? All she's going to do... OK, I believe you. I don't really. All she's going to do for 25 grand is just sit there, laugh a little bit too much, show a bit too much leg. If you can do something better than that for 6 seconds... If you can do it for 6 seconds, you get £5.
Hey, look. Nice bit of leg, isn't it? Nice bit of leg.
6 seconds up, that's fantastic. You can calm down now, Gabby. You've just earned your £5. Cheers, thanks a lot, have a good New Year. So there we have it. With talent like that, who needs real celebrities? This has been Iain Lee, The 11 O'Clock Show, London.
Now here's the news just in. Chris Evans is reportedly having trouble with an obsessive stalker. She could have a gun. That's not a fact, it's just a suggestion.
In Bristol, a milk float crashed and wrote off a parked car. The driver of the float said, "It all happened so fast, I only took my eye off the road for 15 minutes.
Pagan groups have been denied charitable status. It's thought they'll have to tighten their belts. A spokesman said, "We'll have to make some sacrifices."
According to a new survey, 2 out of 3 people are failing in bed because of stress. The third person is said to be very disappointed.
Football news, and Scottish fans have already begun queuing for tickets for the match against England.
I'm getting a ticket for me and one for me fellow wee Jimmy, because he's just lost his job at the Iron Brew factory and I had to sell his kilt for skag.
And that was the news just in. The beef crisis is going from bad to worse. First the frogs and now the Hun. What we need is a strong presence in Europe fighting our corner. But who have we got?
None other than former Home Secretary turned EU Commissioner Leon Brittan.
Do you think he's sharp enough, Daisy?
See what you think. There's been a lot of talk about Britain in Europe, but here's one Briton who's been in Europe for years. Sir Leon Brittan, thank you for talking to us today. You were only 16 when you passed your exam into Cambridge, and people must have been really scrutinising your entrance as a young man.
Well, I really did it as a sort of dummy run, the thought being that have a go, it's good practice.
You did have to be hard to be in that position, didn't you?
Well, you had to be ready to deal with lots of problems, whether it was the miners' strike or a problem in a prison or an immigration problem, and you never knew what was going to hit you. Yes, in that sense, if you like, you had to be hard.
And yes, I quite agree. And would you ever force a young man to take up a difficult position?
No, I think anybody who's forced to do that is not going to be very good at it.
Towards the end of Mrs Thatcher's tenure as Prime Minister, she became something of a liability to the party. Every time she opened her lips, did you think, oh no, what kind of froth and batter is going to come out now?
Not always.
There are issues on which Britain has been particularly vocal. For example, beef. Now, your predecessor had to deal with the Iron Curtain. Do you think now in Europe there are beef curtains?
No, I don't think that's right at all.
When he's kind of outrageous like he is, do you ever want to sort of whip out the little bull fella and spank him and just say, enough?
I think that's not exactly an appropriate thing to want to do when you're talking about the leader of the opposition.
I see Hague's Conservatives as an eager beaver. Do you think that William Hague can handle that split beaver?
Well, I think you put it rather fairly, if I must say so.
That's the end of part 1. Coming up in part 2, we'll be chewing over the week's news with TV hero Keith Chegwin.
But before that, it's been reported today that international terrorist Osama bin Laden is leaving his safe haven in Afghanistan. Here's DJ John Peel reminiscing about the time he spent with the world's most cheeky mass bomber.
See you after the break.
I remember the first time I worked with the Mujahideen. It was actually through Osama bin Laden who got me involved, and at that point the Mujahideen were less a revolutionary force and actually more a group of road builders, and I remember they'd got me involved because of the Radio 1 road shows, which I'd done so many of, but I think they'd rather got the wrong idea of what a road show was, and I remember at the end of the road when it had actually been made fully that Osama, who was quite a kind man generally, he said, let's have a 70s and 80s disco, for the kids and that, and I lent him some of my records, but not actually realising that the main DJ would be Abul Hamza. You might remember him. He was actually in the third best Muslim Dr Hook tribute band in about 1979, and he was a very frightening man, of course. He only had one eye, so it meant he had no real depth of vision, and every time he put the Dinosaur Jr. records on, he'd actually put them on halfway through, and he'd wave his hooks in the air to try and get people involved, and they were rather scared, so they did dance, but not out of love, more out of fear, and when, of course, I got the records back, the hooks had scratched them terribly, and one of my limited edition Undertones flexi discs was very badly ripped.
Now some medical news. Scientists in Washington have turned 3 baboons into hardened cocaine users for a medical experiment. 2 of the animals have since made a full recovery, while a 3rd is still hideously deformed.
Chemicals which disrupt hormone development and contain gender-bending qualities have been found in some of Britain's best-known baby foods. One young mother claimed, "It's brilliant, I've been able to return to work. Now my son breastfeeds himself." Now, this week, Greg Dyke joined the BBC as Director-General Designate and is faced with the mammoth task of making Auntie the nation's favourite once again. So far, he's come up with asking Peter Sissons to start the news with, "You, Rickseens."
Here to give him some much-needed advice is a man with 30 years in television. He's one of the country's leading broadcasters. Please welcome Keith Chegwin.
Hey, don't ask me to give him advice. I haven't got a clue.
Have you not got a clue? Now, you've been in the public eye for over 30 years. Does it ever get on your tits?
Occasionally. I mean, years ago it used to, because I used to walk down the street and people would go, "Oh, hello," and then I'd count 5 and they'd say, "Hey, Keith," and I go, "What?" They go, "Wanker," and they'd run up the road. But it's funny, they don't do that anymore. People just stop and have a little chat and get on with their day-to-day life.
Catchphrases at you?
No, never, no.
Do you not get people going,
"Hey!" No, I get cab drivers going, "Hey, would you like a drink?"
Now, there's you, Richard Bacon and Pee Wee Herman. What makes children's TV presenters go off the rails?
Working with kids.
Really?
Yeah, honestly, they drive you to drink. No, they were wonderful. Actually, no, they weren't that wonderful, I've got to say, because when I was working on programmes like Swap Shop, I was always at the blooming doctor's. I had nits, I had head lice, I had my pockets pinched, everything you could think of. I always remember struggling through a crowd of about 7,000 people. And when I got to the other side, I thought, God, where's my blooming wallet? Where's my gold watch? They'd nicked it all.
The little sods.
There you go.
Clip round the back of the head.
You little sods.
Now, what was, as an alcoholic, what was your lowest point?
My lowest point...
I'm glad you can laugh
on
about
the
it.
floor. On the floor. My lowest point... Oh, do I have to say? Because it...
No.
I'll tell you.
If you don't like it, you don't have to.
No, don't worry. Lying in bed covered in your own vomit and that sort of stuff. I suppose that's the lowest.
And what's the dodgiest thing someone tried to swap on the show?
We had loads. Oh, I can't tell.
Yeah.
The adults were the worst, because they... and university students, because they come up and go, do you want to swap that? Some dildo or something. Yeah. Or blow-up doll. But we actually got done by the police once.
Yeah, we were. Stuff.
Yeah, Hitchin, Hertfordshire. We swapped this little radio cassette player for a kid, you know. And
you swapped it for a kid?
No.
That's the greatest deal I've ever heard.
The things you regret saying on telly. You're too quick for me. No, I swapped this radio on TV and the police came down 10 minutes later and said, oh, where's that kid? I said, what do you mean? He said, where's that... The one that's swapping stolen goods on the telly.
Now, your old Big Breakfast colleague Zoe Ball is leaving Radio 1. Do you think you would take over if there was a national campaign, if we all said, come on, checkers?
I don't know. Yes, I'd like to do it.
Would
yes,
you?
I'll take that job.
Exclusive.
Would you like to wake up with Cheggers first thing in the morning?
Yeah! Yes! We'll start it right
Wake
here
up, you
now.
beggars, it's Cheggers.
Not one of your best, but I like it. I like it.
It's an old one, but it's a goodie.
Now, you're currently hosting It's a Knockout on Channel 5.
Yeah, I love it.
Why?
Oh, it's just... It's just fat people doing thin things, isn't it? It's Miss Tesco versus the bank manager. And I'll tell you, it's one of the... I've done a lot of telly over the years, but this has got to be one of the best shows I've ever worked on.
Really?
I can't wait to get there.
Did you insist on hiring Frank Bruno and pastry girl Nell McAndrew to make you look more intelligent?
Yeah, well, basically... Very nice.
Now, Keith, you can make almost anything sound cheerful with your crazy way. Can you read the following stories in an upbeat, enthusiastic way, just so we can see what they sound like?
Go on. This is from The Guardian. The last deep coal mine in the North East is to close next year, with a loss of 400 jobs. Well, hey! I'll do the next one. From today's Express, a zookeeper was crushed to death yesterday. Oh, what a shame. In Paris, after crushed by a hippo that he looked after for 20 years. Aww.
Go to the last one.
And finally, a young couple were recently found dead in the back of a hearse. What? The lady met up with a trainee undertaker for a romantic tryst in the car. When they parked, they left the engine running to keep warm, but carbon monoxide fumes overcame the couple at the vital moment, and they were locked in an embrace the next morning. Well, hey.
See, doesn't you sound better than Cheggers, I think? Fantastic. Much better. Much better than Maureen Stewart. And now, finally, Keith, you've been reported as saying that in the future you'd like to play a baddie. Well, we've given it some thought and we think we've come up with the ideal role. He's got a monster, lives in a castle, and everyone is scared of him. See what you think.
Go on.
Ladies and gentlemen, Keith Chegwin.
Thank you. Thank you.
With Michael Portillo concluding his fight to become Conservative candidate for Kensington and Chelsea, this show, for one, is sick of the constant innuendo which has accompanied his campaign. And so we've outlawed the following phrases from this programme's forthcoming coverage. We understand that Mr Portillo's experiences in his youth occurred at a time when he was experimenting with his sexuality, and we fully support his brave decision to publicly reveal these events. It should not be a cause for embarrassment nor for ridicule.
Whatever Mr Portillo's sexual orientation, whether in the past or the present, it should not be an issue in the forthcoming by-election. What is an issue is whether the policies he espouses are right for the people of Kensington and Chelsea, and in a wider arena, right for the people of the country as a whole. We hope this puts the matter to rest.
And in accordance with by-election rules, here are the other candidates standing in the Kensington and Chelsea constituency. Jimmy Somerville, Larry Grayson, Barrymore, the Village People. Thank you.
Now, the letter A has been all over the news today. There's been the Australian referendum, Halloween, and of course Ainsley Harriot's untimely accident. Please get well soon, Ainsley. But they're not the only A's that make the news. Here's Ricky Gervais with his A to Z. Today, the letter is A.
Arms race, armies, Armagh, in the news a lot, Ireland, I think. Africa, famine, always happening every year. Oh, we hit that, can you send us some more? Aid, Lenny Henry, Aidy, Kate, not a real war without her. I'm not being funny, right? Have you noticed as the starving Africans get skinnier, Dawn French is getting bigger, you know? Lenny isn't stupid enough to leave food parcels lying around before he posts them off. See, when Dawn's peckish, a truckload of grain and blankets, it's gone. It's like a Scooby snap to her. AIDS, still very big, but it's a simple rule. If you are going to have unprotected anal sex with a lad, and you are an intravenous drug user, say, that's fine. Just make sure you wash the arse afterwards, within a couple of days. Angela Rippon, have I got news for you? Angus Deaton, that's all the A's, I would have thought.
Now time for more news just in.
A train driver who was caught reading his newspaper in the cab of a speeding train has kept his job. Railtrack were going to throw the book at him, but another driver was reading it at the time.
An 83-year-old man called Mr. Pink has been arrested for forging a prescription for Viagra. Police described him as a hardened criminal.
Scientists are investigating a possible link between deodorants and cancer. Many use roll-ons have been advised to check their balls.
An internet-ready home with £25,000 worth of computer equipment installed has gone on sale in Watford. The house has special devices allowing you to turn on the lights and heating in any room. The technical name, I believe, is switches.
The News of the World sensationally uncovered a policeman dealing in ecstasy. Suspicions were aroused when his siren went off and he got out of the car to start dancing. That was more news just in. That's about it for tonight. Just time to tell you about tomorrow night's guest, most famous for working in front of a shaky camera. No, I'm not talking about Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee. It's actually legendary documentary maker Nick Broomfield.
But before we go, following threats from the IRA against the pop group Westlife for their involvement in the Poppy appeal, the band's fans prepared to defend them. And finally, proof that your mum was right. If you're ever approached by a strange man in the street, ignore him. Good night.
Good night. Basically, you're asking people, would you ever consider giving a vox pop in the street for a late-night topical comedy show?
What's a vox pop?
It's what we're doing now, having a chitty-chat in front of the camera.
Yeah, would you? What time?
We can do it now if you want.
Yeah, OK, then, yeah, go on.
OK. Would you ever consider giving a vox pop for a late-night topical comedy show?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
When would you like to do it?
Whenever you like.
Now?
Yeah, now it'd be lovely.
OK, then. Yeah. First question. Would you ever consider giving a vox pop for a late-night topical comedy show?
Yeah, of course I would, yeah.
When do you fancy?
Where or when?
When?
Now.
Whereabouts?
Yeah, we're on the street now.
You'd be up for that?
Yep, I'll have a jump.
OK, well, we'll start now, then. Would you ever consider giving a vox pop in the street for an on-the-day, late-night topical comedy show?
Yep, I'll do it, yep.
When would be the best time to do that?
Best time for me to do it? Well, I'll do it now, but preferably in one of my breaks.
Right. When do you have your breaks?
Between 1:30 and 2:30.
Right. Well, we can do it now quickly if you want.
Yeah, go on in.
OK, let's get the first question off the way. Excuse me. Would you ever consider giving a vox pop in the street for an on-the-day, late-night topical comedy show?
That's about the full time you've asked me that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll do it now, yeah.
What you do it?
I'll do it right now. What do you want to do?
OK, we'll just ask you a few questions, that's all right?
Yeah, go on then, yeah.
OK, we'll see the first question. OK. Would you ever consider actually giving a vox pop in the street for an on-the-day, late-night topical comedy show?
You're cheering me up there, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, see you later.
Lovely, thanks a lot. Cheers. Take care.